Hi, welcome to Slick Willy Fly, and today what we're going to do is this. It's a Scandinavian shrimp pattern called Mukkis. I'm probably saying that wrong, but it's a super simple pattern that I'm actually really excited to tie and try in Florida. This is super popular for people who fish off the Scandinavian coast for havsöring, which is sea run trout. Super popular in Sweden. Super popular in Denmark. It's a very commonly tied fly, and it's super easy to tie. This is a pink with a little tan version. I tie different sizes. Here's a little smaller one in more browns, and that's a ginger chenille. And I mix in a little bit of the salmon pink sometimes. So, you know, again, different colors, different sizes. It's all about matching the hatch. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to tie another pink, and I'm going to use some of my homemade eyes. I'm going to put a link in the video to a video where I show how I make these shrimp eyes, shrimp, crab, whatever you want to use them for. So let's jump right in. Hope you have your cocktail, and let's get in on it. So I'm going to start with a size 2 saltwater hook, and I'm going to put a tiny little bit of lead thread. I don't really count how much lead I put on, but I would say that I put on, I'm going to guess it's about 10 wraps, and this is 0.20 lead thread. And then I just kind of get it all together. Most of the time when I use lead thread, I like to give it a little touch of zap or super glue, but I'm going to go ahead and skip that step only for keeping this video short. And really the only purpose for the super glue is to keep the lead from moving, so we'll manage. So for thread, I'm using 6.0 Vivis in pink. And I'm just laying a base, going right to the end of where the bend of the hook starts. Now I'm going to just do my best to secure this lead thread. And that should do it. So for the tail, I'm going to use, in this previous fly that I showed you, this is craft fur. Craft fur, a little bit of squirrel underneath, and Cactus Chenielle. For today's fly, I'm going to go ahead and use a little bit of pink Bucktail. And you don't need a lot. And I'm going to take out all the shorts like I do in a lot of other of my videos. So you're not gonna see that on this video. But I'm gonna pull out all the shorts, and then I'm gonna pull out all the crazy longs, because I don't really need short or long. And I'm not gonna stack any bucktail because I want it to be a little ragged looking. So I think that clump right there, that looks pretty good. A couple longs there. So for my length, I don't want it to be crazy long, but that's about the length that I like right there. A little bit, I would say from where it starts to thicken up a little bit, maybe the shank, and then of course I need a little bit of a tie-in point. I'm going to tie it to about where the lead starts. So I'm going to go ahead and trim this. I'm going to bring my thread back to right to the back of the lead. I'm going to give that a little spin. And now I'm going to just go ahead and give this a couple loose wraps. because I don't want it to go crazy. I don't want this to flare. So I'm just gonna work it up towards the tail, towards the bend of the hook, making sure that it stays where I want it. Now I'm gonna look at it one time, making sure I like where everything is, and I do. And now I could pull this tight and make sure that I lock this in nice and hard. Nice. And that came out the way I like it. I didn't really want this to be too long. This particular fly I'm gonna make kind of in between some of those others that I just showed you. So the next step for me is going to be the eyes, and for this fly I've chosen to use yellow eyes. And here's a pair of the yellow eyes that I just made today. And again, I'll put a link to how I make these. And I just think it's cool to use eyes that I make. So my length is going to be, I want them to stick out a little bit. And I'm going to use that natural curve in that monofilament. So I'm going to make them probably a little bit longer than what I normally make them. A couple of loose wraps, making sure I like where they are. I like that. That looks good right there. So I can crank that hard and lock that in. You gotta be careful when you're going around that hook point. I don't know if you heard that, but I just nicked my thread. So now this Mason hard mono is actually really hard. So I use my wire cutters to cut it instead of getting damaging my good scissors. So I just go ahead and cut that off. Make sure I got this all locked in. And then I like to flare this eye a little. So I'll come under it a couple times. And I could show you another trick when we get a little bit further along on a good way to flare the eyes. But now I'm going to go ahead and put the other side on. Again, I'm going to use the natural curvature of the monofilament. Couple of wraps. Now I can tweak the placement. Make sure it's not too long. I actually take my time with these eyes. You know, I find that if you just take a couple of seconds getting these placed right where you want them makes a lot of difference. And once I'm happy, and I'm happy, just wrap them up nice and hard. Cut off that tag, again with my wire cutters. And that's done. This is a really, really simple, very beginner level tie. There's really nothing to fear here. Perfect. So now I have a piece of Krystal Flash, and this one I decided to go with a little pink Krystal Flash. And basically it's the antenna. So all I'm going to do is go ahead and put it on the thread. I'm going to try my best to take both sides about the same length. Which I think I have. Now I just go ahead and put it right on top. And lock this in. And before I go crazy locking it in, I separate them. 1 to each side, give or take and lock them in a little bit better. Just like that. And if you find that you have these a little too long, you can always trim them. But that looks about right. All right, and now for my last material. Oh, actually, I take that back, I'm sorry. We're gonna go ahead and put in a little feather. We're gonna hackle in a little feather. And I'm gonna do this from the tip side. So I'm gonna go ahead and just carefully expose the tip. Tying the tip in as best I can. Bringing the thread back. It's nearly impossible not to capture a few fibers there. But then I'm going to take my hackle plier. And I'm going to carefully, as best as I can, on every single wrap, I'm going to try to have these fibers going forward. Gotta work around the hook, unfortunately. I'm gonna try and stroke these forward towards the eyes. As best I can. And once I've got this hackle on there, I'm going to bring my thread back up. And now I'm going to capture this. Whoops. Dropped everything there for a second. Luckily I had already made a wrap. And now I'm going to cut this little remaining feather off. Just like that. Now what I like to do is I like to take it all forward with my fingers and just build a little wall behind, making sure that I didn't capture any Krystal Flash in a bad way. Everything is where it should be. I bring everything forward. Just like that. That looks pretty good right there. Make sure my eyes are nice and splayed. All right. So now I can take out the chenille, the Cactus Chenielle. So all I'm going to do is expose a couple of millimeters of the thread. I'm just going to peel it off. This one's on there really hard. But we got it. We got it. And I want to make sure that when I tie this on, that I get really all the way to the back of that hackle. I want this Cactus Chenielle to really start almost on top of the hackle. Bring my thread forward and out of the way. And now you can use your rotary function. And you can do this any way you like. We'll go ahead and use the rotary function. And I want to build a little taper. So I'm going to do a couple of turns on top of each other here by the front. So it's a little thicker by the eyes. before I start working my way back. And I'm actually going to stop just short of the eye of the hook. I'm going to capture this Cactus Chenielle. And I can trim it off. Just like that. So now it's just a whip finish. And now I'm going to take a little tiny bit of UV resin and thin. Just enough to just put a little coat that'll go into the thread and make this fly pretty much bulletproof. That right there was plenty. Now the last thing I like to do is I like to take my scissors and just give this a tiny little bit of a trim, because I really like to have that tapered body. So I'm just trimming up a little bit of the chenille by the knot, giving it that little bit more of a tapered look. Just like that. And that came out great. All right, so there it is. Let's see if I can show you a little better. One Mukkis. I'm not really actually sure how they say it. It's spelled Mukkis. And it is clearly a shrimp pattern. And I love it. I think it came out great. And I think this is going to be great in Florida. I think that tie this in the right colors. I can see even a bonefish or having a go at this. Certainly a redfish. I can see me casting this up into the mangroves for, you know, jacks or snook or, you know, sea trout. I can see a lot of different fish having a go at this. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you like and subscribe. Thank you again for watching, and see you on the next video.